Hi, I'm Lee at Iridium. Hope everyone's doing all right today. So, album review time. Sunbomb, Evil and Divine. So, the nice people at Frontiers have sent me an early copy or an early link to hear the album. So, thank you very much for that, guys. Really appreciate that. So, this one I've really been looking forward to. This is on Frontiers, obviously, May the 14th, this Friday. This is the project with Tracy Guns and Michael Sweet. Also, we've got Mitch Davis on the bass, and drums is Adam Hamilton, also of LA Guns. So, I mean, there's been 3 singles released so far. And what I thought of them, I've loved every track so far. I've reacted to every track. They're giving you something different each time as well. Definitely 70s inspired stuff mainly, with a little bit of 80s mixed in as well. Now, I'm not an LA Guns, or I haven't heard a lot of LA Guns stuff, so I'm quite new to LA Guns. But what I have heard of Tracy Guns guitaring, songwriting on them 3 tracks, you know, I thought was great. Also, the stuff he's doing at the moment with Social Disorder, check that band out. They've brought a couple of songs out where Tracy Guns is playing guitar, and he does an amazing job. So Tracy Guns is something I really want to check out, you know, from now on. You know, it's just LA Guns. I don't know why. It's just one of them bands that I never listened to much when I was younger. Obviously got Vamp the Cat listening in because I'm doing a video, and that's just what happens. There you go. So on the write-up with the link I was sent, now it gives a description of what you're going to hear. So it's got Sabbath, Judas Priest. It mentions doom metal. So I would definitely agree with Sabbath and doom metal without a doubt. And I'm not saying all the way through this album, but there's some tracks which we'll get onto soon where doom metal plays a big part of this on this album. Obviously, it's, you know, Tracy Guns grew up listening to some doom metal, and, you know, his influences are all across this album. So Judas Priest, for me, not so much, but that's just me. I don't think there's much of a Judas Priest influence there. I would say definitely a bit of Zeppelin there, here and there, but not too much as well. So, you know, you got to get. I want to give you guys something and give you something to compare, so you know if you're going to like this album or not. So I'm going to get onto it track by track. Here we go. So kicking off the album is one of the singles called Life, which is a great song. Great riff kicking it off. Then Michael Sweet's distinctive scream at the beginning, and he screams a lot on this album. So if you think you're going to get, you know, those Striper screams, you are going to get those that he does in Striper. He is singing slightly different on this album. It isn't a total, like, getting away completely from what he does with Striper. He did say that he's singing slightly different, and I would definitely agree with that. A lot of the time he's singing higher all the way through some songs, which, you know, is just a slightly different tone to what he does with Striper. So that's cool. It's showing that he can flex his muscles with other projects, you know. In that one, especially Life, he's singing that upper range. Cool up-tempo song to start the album off. You know what? It's a great song. You've got to start the album off with an up-tempo song. It's a good one. So next up is Take Me Away. So this is one of my favourite tracks. This is where the Sabbath influence comes in. Doomy riff kicking it off. Very similar to the Black Sabbath track itself, the actual track Black Sabbath, with those dampened down, evil sounding chords, and then, like, they get heavier in the chorus, just like the Black Sabbath song does. I don't want to keep comparing, but, you know, I want to tell you what to expect. Michael Sweet's singing is quite aggressive in this, although it's at the deeper range on this one. He's quite aggressive, giving everything in this, really. So, but he still does the odd scream in the song. At the 3:30 mark, the actual song dies down, and as I was listening to it, I was thinking, right, it's going to kick into that, because it does sound very similar to the Black Sabbath song. I was waiting for it to kick on with that galloping sort of riff and pick the song up, and it actually did. Went in that galloping style, like the end of Black Sabbath song did. Tracy Gunn's guitar solo is great, and his solos are great throughout this album. Really full of melody. It's like he almost writes his solos. I don't know how he writes them, or if he just goes for it and makes bits up, or if he actually writes these solos, but it sounds like there's a lot of thought gone into them. There's a lot of melody, so he might play a little melody line and then play a fast bit, and then we're talking about every one of these songs. His melody all the way through. He doesn't forget that. Next up is Better End, which is another single. Don't wanna be a bit thrashy in parts of this one. Did a reaction to this one, good song. I do like the riffs going over the verses the most in this. They're very cool, very 70s inspired in parts, this song, as most of the album is, especially the chorus. Next up is the first single that came out, No Tomorrows. Love that song. Again, very 70s inspired for me. Great galloping riffs all the way through these verses. Michael Sweet singing in that high range again. Very catchy song, especially the verses. Next up is Born to Win. Now this starts off with a very 70s again inspired riff, then into a really thrashy rhythm. This one is very fast, probably the fastest song on the album in most parts. Almost punky, I would say, but not too much. I'm not a huge punk fan, but it's got those slight elements of punk. Great solo from Tracy Guns again, showing how fast he can actually work his way up and down the fretboard. For this one is about speed on this solo, and he's great at that as well. The technical stuff and the melodic stuff as well. Evil and Divine, the title track, is next. One of my favourite tracks. After a cool riff at the beginning, a thrashy part, then the song goes into this sort of nice cool groove all the way through it. Very good chorus, slightly doomy as well. That's where the Sabbathy sort of tones are coming through. Michael Sweet sort of great in the vocals on this one, sort of singing that higher range again. Quite a nice bluesy solo mixed with, you know, metal as well. He's very clever, Tracy Guns, at mixing metal with blues. They do the odd, you know, bending the string like a bluesy bit and then go into the metal type stuff as well. Very clever. Evil and Divine, great track. Next is Been Said and Done. So bit of a change of pace. Acoustic guitar, it sort of breaks up the album really nice actually. Again, a real 70s feel to this, almost psychedelic in places. I'll say this is the closest song to Zeppelin on the album itself, I would say. But it becomes more epic, this song. It builds up, and Tracy Guns comes in with his electric guitar soloing and solo parts throughout the song, giving it a very epic feel, still with that acoustic guitar running in the background. I love it, man. Acoustic guitar, you can't beat. If they're going to use a guitar that's not electric, don't just play clean guitar, like electric guitar, like with a clean effect. Play it acoustic. It just brings the whole song alive, and it's a really cool song. Next is Stronger Than Before. Very bluesy, this one. Descending bluesy riff, so you sort of descending, kicking this song off, and that continues through the choruses as well. Michael Sweet sounds great on this track, by the way. It's not one of my favourite tracks because I'm not a real bluesy person, but Michael Sweet's voice in this, his vocals are absolutely outstanding. Next up is Story of the Blind. This has a similar gallop to No Tomorrows. So Michael Sweet singing in that lower range though, slightly Sabbath again, doomy chorus. You know, it's like not fully doom. The only song I'd say that was fully doomy is probably Take Me Away at this point. You know, that is a real doom track, almost Candlemassy. So next up is World Gone Wrong. This is probably the second closest thing to Take Me Away, where it got that doom feel to it. So more Candlemass, I would say, with this. I love a bit of Candlemass anyway. So some real heavy riffs in the verses. Probably that in this, like my favourite riff, I would say, within this song in the verses. Love the solo. Some great thought gone into the songwriting on the solos. Honestly, it does feel like it's more, with the solo in, it's more of that 80s feel, where the songs sound 70s inspired, but when you heard 80s solos, they were very well thought out. It was about the melody, and that seems what Tracy Guns is thinking of on this album. The closer's really good and all. It's called They Fought. Similar gallop to it, to a bit like No Tomorrows and Story of the Blind. I feel Michael Sweet's delivery is quite close to Stryper's in this one. It has a very, when I heard this one, I was thinking that is quite close to Stryper. The actual got a different bass player in this one. Does it on one track, Johnny Martin. He does the bass on this, does a great job. There's an almost Celtic feel to the solo. I'm not actually sure what the song's about lyrically, but it's got a Celtic sort of feel. So that's it. That closes the album off. So a great album. Sort of after hearing the 3 singles, and I did hear the little clips. I think there was clips on iTunes or something. I heard those, but it's sort of, I was excited for the album, but I think that it sort of exceeded my expectations, because especially with the soloing, I'm really, pleased with what I'm hearing with Tracy Guns. He's one of them ones that's gone under the radar for me all these years, but I think he's a really clever guitarist, because it's not just about speed and how fast you can play. He's a melodic player, and I like that. I really like a melodic guitar player. Michael Sweet does a great job throughout this. Like I said, not straying mentally, not going really far away from the Stryper vocal delivery, but definitely different on a lot of songs, and a lot in that higher range. At times not so aggressive as he is in Stryper. These are a couple of times he's quite aggressive in his delivery, but I'd say he's a bit more aggressive in the Stryper delivery, but quite higher range, like I said, on this album, quite a bit. But really packed full of interesting music. The 70s for me wasn't my favourite era. Well, I grew up in the 80s, but you can hear, I'm not saying this is totally 70s sounding, but it harks back and has a feel of that with parts of the 80s sort of sound as well. But it's definitely, set back in those times. I think Tracy Gunn said it's an album he would have liked to have made when he was 17 years old, or the album he should have made when he was 17 years old. You can imagine, you could listen to this album all those years ago. It would fit straight into that style of music. As far as the production is concerned, I like the production. I think it suits the music. It's not, where it's got that 70s feel. It has that 70s feel with the music as well. The drums especially, I feel that the drummer reminded me a little bit of Vinny Appice. You can hear a lot of the cymbals when he's playing. The drums are quite at the forefront of the music. And that's a good thing, especially if he sounds like Vinny Appice. I think, that might have been on purpose. It has that sort of Mob Rule sort of feel to me sometimes on this album. But a great album. I really recommend getting this album, or whatever you want to do, whatever your streaming service is. Make sure you download this on Spotify, whatever it is, iTunes, or you especially help the guys out by buying the CD or vinyl if it's available. Thank you very much for listening. When you get to hear the album, let me know what you think, if you agree with what I've been saying. But recommendation, easy from me. So I'll see you next time.